Welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. If you enjoy our content, please like or subscribe.
Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have construction needs? Maybe you want to get a pergola or something done? Check out K&H Construction. Errol Waxahachie, Chris Helmsley, local guy. Let them know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest in front of the show is House District 10 Representative, Mr. Brian Harrison. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, DV, it is always great to be with you, my friend. I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and even better now that I'm talking to you, buddy.
Thank you, my friend. You know, it's always good to see you. I appreciate that you come on the show to talk to the voters of Ellis County. I mean, it's big. There's a lot going on, and you're running for re-election, and you got two opponents, and I mean, there's a lot going on. So, for people that may not know you, I mean, there may be some that may not know you.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and give kind of quick intro, and then we'll bust right into the issue.
No, as fast as Ellis County is growing, I mean, it's a real honor. I get to represent Ellis County, which is now the 8th fastest growing county, not just in Texas, but in the whole country. So new people are moving here every day, and it's one of the things I love about being out and knocking on doors and getting to meet the new people that are choosing to call Ellis County home because of how great of a community it is to live in here in Texas. So yeah, absolutely. So it's the honor of my life. I get to be the representative in the Texas House of Representatives for this area, which is Ellis County as the heart of the district. And I am running for re-election. I was elected in 2021. And for the folks that don't know me, prior to getting elected to the Texas House, I had the real honor of serving as President Trump's Chief of Staff at the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the biggest cabinet agency on planet Earth, where I helped him deliver historic conservative victories during his first term, like securing the border with Title 42, or like defunding, keeping our commitment, our promise to protect the unborn. We defunded Planned Parenthood for the first time in 50 years. It was a real honor to get to help President Trump deliver those accomplishments for the American people. And when I moved back to Texas, right back here to Ellis County, we'd kept our home here because I knew I was just going to come serve under President Trump and then come home when that was over. My family, friends, neighbors, and folks that knew, because I've grown up in this district. I went to junior high in this district. I went to high school in this district. And folks that had known me for 30 plus years, as well as what I had done in Washington, D.C., the biggest swamp of them all, but holding true to my conservative pro-liberty values, asked me if I would run for the Texas House. And so I did. And in 2021, I got elected. And for the last 4 years, I have been the voice for freedom, the fighter for liberty for 200,000+ people that call House District 10 home. And, when I ran for office, I promised I was going to fight as hard as I possibly could to protect liberty, to ward against socialism, to fight against big government, for low taxes and low regulations and secure borders, and to cut spending and cut government so that we could be free. And I am proud to say that I have kept my word. And in fact, you don't have to take my word for it. I have been named officially the most fiscally conservative member out of the entire Texas legislature, all 150 members of the House and 31 members of the Senate. I am the #1 most fiscally conservative member of the Texas legislature. And I have been endorsed for re-election. This is pretty exciting, given that I used to work for him, by President Donald J. Trump. President Trump has told me he's got my back in this election, and other conservative leaders like Senator Ted Cruz and others have endorsed me to go back. So I'm very excited to be running for re-election. And I got to tell you, DV, the response to my re-election campaign has been absolutely overwhelming. So thrilled about the prospect of discussing that for a few minutes here with you today.
You've built quite a reputation for being the most, if not the most, one of the most conservative members of the Texas House of Representatives. Yep. And I mean, you're very, very outspoken on things. But one of the jabs that people take at you is maybe you haven't had the legislative victories that you could, you possibly have, or maybe that's hampered you. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. No, I do hear that. The Democrats and the fake Republicans and the rhinos, they have to come up with something to attack me. And let me tell you, it's all projection. The reason they say nonsense like that is because no state representative has worked harder or delivered more consequential results for the people of Ellis County or Texas than I have. Starting from the first minutes I got elected in 2021, we were coming on the heels of COVID, and I had been working with President Trump to try and reopen the economy and that sort of thing. And I get elected in 2021. And to my shock and horror, I find out two things. Number one, The Democrats control the Texas House of Representatives. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. The radical Democrats control the Texas House. As we speak right now, it is the liberal Democrat caucus that elects the leadership team, including the Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives. The Speaker pro tem of the Republican Texas House is a radical, open borders, BLM activist, anti-Second Amendment Democrat. Democrats chair the committees in the Texas House of Representatives. The parliamentarian, the most powerful person in the Texas House, even right now as we speak, is a former Barack Obama White House lawyer. So I learned two things. Number one, fake Republicans and Democrats are in charge in the Texas House. And number two, we still had COVID vaccine mandates in 2021. So I was sworn in at 9 o'clock in the morning. By noon, I filed the boldest legislation, the Texas COVID Vaccine Freedom Act, to protect 30 million Texans from ever being forced to take a COVID vaccine. And I'm really proud to say that, DV, I successfully led the charge to end COVID vaccine mandates in Texas. And in fact, if it weren't for me and my ability to use social media to cut out the mainstream media and talk directly to Texans, we may still have COVID vaccine mandates today. So one of my first acts showing up on the scene was to successfully lead the charge to force the liberal establishment in Austin to pass legislation to end COVID vaccine mandates. I did that, period, full stop, by locking arms with conservative Texans across the state of Texas, and we delivered that victory. So from those early days all the way through to now, where not only have I had like some success or marginal success, the biggest, most historic conservative victories that have been had for legislative policy in the last year, I am the one who has delivered those for 30 million people. And in fact, just the last few months, I was able to force out, did this single-handedly, by the way, the president of Texas A&M University, when he was caught on tape pushing transgenderism and threatening conservative students in class. I said, no, we got to have accountability. My constituents should not be forced to pay the $1 million plus salary of an educrat to push transgenderism in the classrooms. And I successfully got rid of the president of one of the biggest universities in the country, something nobody thought a state rep would be able to do. I got it done. My constituents here in Ellis County, they are sick and tired of having their money weaponized against them, their children, and their values. But this radical DEI, which is race-based contracting, okay, and the state of Texas has been one of the biggest funders of DEI in America. I single-handedly, just in the last half a year or less, ended the biggest, longest-running DEI program in the entire Texas government. And then even after the entire Texas legislature had 3 sessions and did not do a single serious thing on border security, I said, I'm not going to stop fighting even if we're out of session. And I single-handedly led a coalition of patriots across Texas, quite frankly, across the country. And I enacted the biggest conservative victory for border security in Texas history in modern times by stopping the DMV from doing what they were doing, which was facilitating illegal immigration by registering the vehicles of illegal aliens. And I shut down the DMV open border policy of allowing illegal aliens to register their vehicles in the state of Texas. So whether it's DEI, transgender indoctrination, border security, not only have I been effective, I have been the single most effective member of the entire legislature. And it should be no surprise then that national conservative leaders, including top appointees of President Trump, have put out public statements saying that I may be the most effective lawmaker, not just in Texas, state lawmaker, not just in Texas, but in the entire United States of America. And I'm really proud. I'm really proud of what I've been able to deliver for tangible results for the voters right here in Ellis County.
You have been most critical, like one of the most critical Republicans against the Texas House Speaker. You have, frequently spoke about him and talked about him. Do you think that helps or hampers you in trying to get things done for the district? And how do you use social media as a way around him?
Oh, yeah, no. The most hated thing under the corrupt pink dome of the Capitol in Austin is probably my social media. And let me tell you why I'm so proud of this thing, okay? Because what this does, what it is I have ushered in an unprecedented, whole new paradigm of radical transparency, because Texans are sick and tired of being gaslit. They're sick and tired of voting for Republicans who promise them, hey, vote for me and I'll go stand up to the radical Democrats. Vote for me and I'll stand up against those leftists who are going to bankrupt the next generation and indoctrinate your kids and use your money to. They're sick and tired of it. And so what I have been able to do for the past 4 years, including by standing up to the corrupt leadership team in the Texas House, and it's absolutely corrupt, is I have been able to use social media and regular media to cut out the establishment and go directly to the people that I work for, and that's the hardworking, overtaxed men and women of the state of Texas, and in particular of Ellis County. So my courage has been contagious and successful. So yes, my standing up to the corrupt leadership team in the Texas House not only has allowed me to be successful, it has allowed me to be the single most successful for delivering the conservative type of policies that the men and women of Ellis County demand, and quite frankly, that they deserve. If I had stayed quiet, sat in my chair, voted how I was told, which is what they do. They indoctrinate you when you get elected. They tell you, you're not really a legislator. They tell you this. They say, you're in a fraternity now, and you need to act like it. And by that, we mean don't attack the Democrats. Don't tell the voters the truth about how we sell them downriver and how we work with the Democrats to destroy liberty for the next generation. Don't tell them that. And I said, you know what? That's not what I got elected for. I've got 4 children from 11 years old on down. And guys, if we don't radically change course in our state, we are going to become California. And that means we're going to lose the country, because as goes Texas, so goes the nation. As goes the nation, so goes the world. I have never lost sight of the fact that I don't work for the liberal special interests in the Austin Swamp. I don't work for the Speaker of the Texas House. I don't work for anybody who has an office underneath the corrupt pink donut in Austin. I work for the 200,000+ men and women who call Ellis County, Texas, their home. And every vote that I make, every decision that I make, every speech I deliver on the floor of the Texas House, I do it for them. Yes, the desk on the floor in the Texas House chamber says Harrison on it, but let me tell you something. I am just the custodian. I am just the vessel. I am the voice for the patriots in Ellis County, Texas, who know their taxes are too high, who know their regulations are too high, who know their kids have an affordability crisis, and who know that their borders haven't been secure, and who know that the Texas government, even though it's run by Republicans, has not fought as hard to end the crushing burden of property taxes as it should, who has not fought as hard to make sure that our kids and grandkids grow up in a free and prosperous Texas. And it has been my honor to not only just be their voice for freedom, their fighter for liberty, but to deliver the biggest conservative results of anybody who has ever held the seat here in House District 10.
What is the most pressing social issue, since we're kind of on social issues? There's been, in my forum the other night, I mentioned that, right now there's a big thing on Sharia law and Epic, and there's been lawsuits and that kind of issue. But what do you see as the biggest pressing issue hitting Texas? And if you're reelected, what is the legislation that you plan on introducing to fight a certain social issue?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to answer that question. And by the way, they're all related. The economic issues for me and the social issues, they're really two sides of the same coin, because when the Texas government does liberal things on the social front, well, guess what? Government can't do anything unless it first taxes people to do it. So the biggest issue for me, in a lot of respects, is the Texas government taxing Texans out of their homes to fund a far-left progressive agenda. And people are shocked. I mean, I was shocked to learn. People are shocked to know that the Texas government has not only stopped funding, not banned or stopped funding transgender indoctrination in the classrooms. The Texas government has been one of the biggest funders of the transgender agenda out of anybody in the country. So I'm going to continue leading the fight against that. And again, I have done more to stop Ellis County taxpayers from funding transgender indoctrination in the classroom than any other member of the Texas legislature, period. Full stop. And for example, some people want to say, hey, well, that stuff, maybe that's in the big cities or the blue parts of our state. That's not true. It made national news coast to coast in Red Oak, Texas, when a transgender teacher was pushing his, her, their, whatever, radical transgender indoctrination onto students in House District 10. And I had the courage, even though it was against a school district in my own district, because I represent the taxpayers, I represent the parents in Red Oak, Texas, when Red Oak had a transgender teacher saying that he got his, and I'm not making this up, his sort of sexual affirmation or euphoria from his minor students affirming his transgender ideology. I went to the media. I put out a public statement immediately. I wrote a letter directly to the leadership in Red Oak, and I said this has to end. And then myself and then a very prominent other media influence person, a libs of TikTok, We made this a national story, and within, I think, 1 or 2 weeks, we got that teacher out of the classroom, and I was able to stop taxpayers in Ellis County from funding the salary of a radical transgender indoctrinator. And then you mentioned Sharia law. This may be rapidly climbing to the very top of the list that my voters are concerned about. People see these images and the videos, what's coming out of London and Europe as a result of unchecked mass illegal migration. They think that, some people think that, well, that could never happen here. But I think people are waking up to the fact that we do have a radical an explosion of adherence to violent Islam and radical Sharia law. For example, we have over 2 mosques every month are going up here in Texas. We've got over 200 here in the Dallas area, over 100 down in Houston. And as we speak, we have 2 functioning Sharia law tribunals not that far from House District 10, one in Irving and one in Dallas. And despite the protestations from the people in the Austin Establishment Uniparty, when they put out these statements saying Texas has banned Sharia law, I'm in the legislature. And Texans deserve the truth. We have not banned Sharia law in any way, shape, or form. So I am calling for, very publicly, and this is a new thing, I am calling for legislative hearings to start immediately so we can start exposing the threat of radical Sharia law to 30 million Texans, expose the truth that Texas has not banned it, and to prepare legislative solutions that I believe, in the second part of my call here, we should have a special session to deal with property taxes, the biggest failure of last session, that we got the worst property taxes maybe.
And the session before.
And the session before, right. And here's the thing. You mentioned the folks running against me. Both of my opponents have campaigned for higher property taxes. Meanwhile, I've been spending 4 years down in the state capitol, not only fighting for lower property taxes and property tax relief. People use the term property tax relief when they want to fool you. We need to do the right thing. I'm fighting for the full elimination of property taxes in the state of Texas so that Texans can finally own their own home, so that Texans can own their own property. Never-ending property taxes are immoral, unethical. They need to be thrown on the ash heap of history, and I will continue filing legislation to end them and to make them wholly unconstitutional. Texas would be the most prosperous state in the country. We'd go from being the economic engine of America to the economic juggernaut of the planet, and 30 million Texans would be some of the most free and prosperous human beings who have ever called this planet their home if we can just get rid of these ridiculous, immoral, and unethical property taxes. And by the way, I am the only candidate in this race who can be counted on to fight against property taxes.
Devil's advocate. We do away with property tax. How do we fund the services that, some services are needed? I know government's bloated and there's extra, but there's like essentials, like let's say law enforcement. How do we fund those?
It's a great question. And of course, just because I say no property taxes, that's not the same thing as saying no taxes and no government. That's what, and you're right. You're not saying that, DP. You and I have talked about this a lot, so I know you're playing the devil's advocate. But that's exactly what they do. It's what the big government rhinos, the big government Democrats who want to protect property taxes at all costs, by the way, including both of the rhino fake Republicans who are running against me, who have a track record of fighting for higher property taxes. But this is what the Democrats do, okay? Every time a real conservative like me says, let's eliminate property taxes, they immediately go to, well, are you saying you want to defund the police? You don't want roads. You don't want bridges. You don't want fire. You don't want the basic government. Complete lies. You can fund all of that on a fraction of what the current bloated government is spending. So number one, you got to cut spending. And I have filed legislation to cut approximately $90 billion from our bloated budget. And yes, by the way, the state of Texas has increased spending 42% just in the last 2 budget cycles. I'm going to say that again. The state of Texas has exploded government spending 42% in just 2 budget cycles. We have got to undo that, and I will continue filing legislation to cut that spending back. Because if you don't cut spending back, you can never lower taxes of any kind, no matter what form of taxes. But by the way, it's not academic for me. You can absolutely eliminate property taxes. Some cities in Texas, people are shocked to learn, have already gotten rid of property taxes on their own. Stafford comes to mind. We haven't even changed the laws, and they've already eliminated property taxes in the city of Stafford. So the state of Texas could do it. It would require some tweaks to our consumption tax laws, but you broaden the base, tweak those consumption tax laws, you cut spending, and then, by the way, because just the spending cuts I've proposed would allow us to get rid of the school district M&O, which is the biggest part of your property taxes. We could do that right now, today, we wouldn't even have to change any. Nobody would even know that it would happen unless you're one of the bureaucrats, that lost your job from my bloated government budget cuts. But we could absolutely do it. You cut spending, change the consumption tax laws. And by the way, a good friend of mine, who was a former top Trump White House economist, has put out a white paper detailing exactly how this could be done. We could do it over a 1 or 2 year cycle or out to 10 years. When I file legislation, I go right down the middle. I think 5 years is an appropriate time to let us build an off-ramp from the current immoral system to a system that would switch us to some type of a consumption tax model. But it would allow people more control over how much taxes they pay, and perhaps more importantly, it would allow Texans to, for the first time ever, own their own home, own their own property. Either we believe in property rights in the state of Texas, or we don't. And right now, we don't, and it's time for that to change. We got to end property taxes.
If you're paying taxes on your home, then you never quite own your home, and that is the most correct statement.
Right.
You never do, because even after you pay off the mortgage, you're still paying Ellis County, somebody. You're paying somebody, and that is a true statement. And I mean that's just as true a statement as can be.
No, you can call, if you're responsible. Let's say you pay off you and your spouse, you pay off your mortgage, you live in there for 30, 40, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, you pay off your mortgage. You can call yourself a homeowner all you want. But the reality is, if you don't make that, you don't write that check at the end of the year, you're going to find out real fast who owns your home. And guess what? It ain't you. You are just, right now in the state of Texas, there are no homeowners. There are only renters, and the government is your landlord. That's immoral. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to fight. Because DV, people in Ellis County, they come in my office. They call me on the phone. They email me, literally in tears, not knowing if they're going to be able to keep the property that they've paid for. It's been in their family for generations. That is wrong. And I am the only candidate in the race calling that out, who can be counted on to fight to protect private property rights in the state of Texas. It might be the single biggest issue. We've got to eliminate property taxes.
One of the biggest charges from your opponents is that, and this is in Ellis County, where they talk about your lack of support for public education, MISD and UISD, and that you supported education savings accounts and school choice, and they have criticisms about the way or lack of support that they perceive for public education in the county you represent. Can you address it?
Yeah, well, look, these are two liberal fake Republicans, so it's not surprising that they are repeating the talking points of the radical leftists. I am proud to stand on those issues on the exact same side as President Donald J. Trump. I am proud to stand on the side of people like Senator Ted Cruz. I'm proud, and our governor, our lieutenant governor, by the way, we all had the same positions. My opponents have the exact same position as Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama. Okay, my position on education is Donald Trump's, Ronald Reagan's, Ted Cruz. I am the only one in this race who has the real Republican view on education. Let me say this. When we talk about our public schools here, we do have a lot of good public schools in the state of Texas. But here's the reality, and I'm going to give Texans the truth. While my opponents are going to do what Democrats and liberals do, which is lie, I'm going to tell them the truth. We have an existential crisis in public education in the state of Texas. Right now, only 24% of Texas 8th graders are proficient in reading. Only 23% of Texas 8th graders are proficient in mathematics. And we are spending about $20,000 per student per year. We have a massive problem. And I think that one of the biggest problems we've had is we have not given parents, who matter the most to me, parents, students, and teachers. All right, that's who I'm fighting for. And I have a track record, probably one of the boldest out there, pro-parent, pro-student, pro-teacher. And we have got to allow parents to have more control, transparency, and to let them choose where, when, how, the setting to best educate their child. If we don't do that, we're going to be committing generational fraud and handing students by the hundreds of thousands diplomas that they cannot read. And we are Texas. We are better than that. Right now, the system is failing to educate even proficiently, even 1/4 of our students. And then also, the thing that separates me from my liberal opponents is they want to bloat out and increase funding, raise property taxes to bloat out even further the already bloated bureaucracy, these educrats. They want the teacher unions to be in charge so they can continue paying superintendents more than the president of the United States. And people are shocked to learn because people, when they pay their property taxes for education, they think that money is going to the teacher. Here's the reality. Far less than half of that money ever ends up in the classroom. And that is an absolute travesty. It's an injustice. So while my opponents are fighting for teacher unions, I'm fighting for teachers. We have got to, and I've proposed legislation to do this, we have got to force the system to prioritize the one person that matters the most, other than parents, and that's our great teachers. But right now, the system is prejudiced against the teachers. And so I have filed many pieces of legislation to make the school districts prioritize the teacher. I have filed, and I'm proud to have filed, the most pro-teacher legislation maybe in the history of Texas. It would have given teachers the biggest pay raise in the history of the state of Texas. So I continue fighting for parents. I continue fighting for teachers, parents by giving them more control of education and transparency. I continue to fight for teachers by prioritizing education funding to get to the teachers and to the classroom. And then I'm the only one in the race who's prioritizing students, because my conservative Republican policies are what have been proven in other states that have done this to increase education outcomes, increase the educational opportunities for the students right here in House District 10.
I'm running out of time, and I don't want Cassie to put me in a chokehold.
No, you're good. You're good.
You got about 4 or 5 minutes, but
yeah,
you got roasted online because of your vote for when the campers died down in Austin area. God bless their souls and their families. You got roasted over that vote on no for the retrofits, or I don't know exactly, and I should, what that legislation did, but you voted no and you were roasted online for it. Do you regret that vote?
Absolutely not. And that was one of the toughest votes I've had to take. And you know what, let me tell you what happened. Because again, the Texas House leadership was wholly corrupt and controlled by Democrats. What happened was in the aftermath of that absolutely heartbreaking flooding in the Texas Hill Country, the Texas government the Texas House, just what Ronald Reagan warned us against, when Ronald Reagan said we can't lose sight of the fact that oftentimes government solutions are worse than the problems than they intend to solve. And this is a textbook example of that. In a rush to action, what happened was a bill was filed that I was okay with. I had actually prepared to vote for that bill. It was called House Bill 1 in a special session. I went to the floor that day prepared to vote for it. Well, what the corrupt leadership team in the Texas House did is they said, when they put the bill on the floor, they said, you know what, just kidding. We're going to pull this back, and we're going to put a brand new bill in its place. And then what they did is they let radical Democrat after radical Democrat after radical Democrat come up, offer an amendment, and then the amendment would pass because the fake Republicans that control the Texas House told my colleagues to vote for it. So it passes. And then the bill is fundamentally rewritten to do what the Democrats, the radical leftists, have been trying to do for 50 or 100 years, and that is this: shut down every Christian camp in the state of Texas. Because the radical leftist, progressive, socialist Democrats hate the fact that there are places in the state of Texas that children can go to get away from the hustle and bustle and have prayer time and spiritual education, meditation, time with nature and with their Creator. Because, by the way, all of the things these Christian camps teach are antithetical to the goals of the radical leftist progressives. So what happened was the Texas House leadership passed, instead of a common sense bill that I was prepared to vote yes on, when they let the Democrats rewrite it to shut down Christian camps, I was the only one out of the entire Texas legislature that had the courage to say that even though my heart breaks for those families, in our rush to, quote, do something, the something that we do cannot be evil, it can't be unethical, and it certainly should not be to hand the Democrats on a silver platter one of their top priorities for the last 50 plus years. And so when I made the decision that I had to vote no, and there's video that you can watch, I went to the floor of the Texas House, I went to the microphone, and I respectfully had to explain, guys, I had prepared to vote for this bill, but after the radical Democrats rewrote it, were allowed to rewrite it, I cannot with a good conscience vote yes on a bill because of what I know it's going to do, what I believe it's going to do to all these Christian camps. And let me tell you something, DV, it was really hard because in the moment, I had to make that decision really fast. But let me tell you what happened about 2 weeks ago. I got a call from the head of the Christian Camp Association of the state of Texas, and he was calling to let me know that up to 200 Christian camps were in absolute panic because they realized that because of this disastrous Democrat-written law, they might have to shut their doors and shut their doors forever and not be able to serve the churches and charities and families and the children that have been attaining great value from these camps for decades upon decades upon decades. So not only was it the right vote, it was the hard vote. I tell my kids this. I got 4 kids. You do the right thing, even if it's the unpopular thing. You do the right thing, even if you're standing alone. And yeah, I was standing alone on that vote, but let me tell you something. I've been completely vindicated because that bill now is threatening well over 100 camps in the state of Texas. And quite frankly, shame on everybody who voted to allow the Democrats to shut down Christian camps. And by the way, I am the only Republican in this race for House District 10 that has sided with the Christian camps. Both of my opponents have attacked me for standing up to protect Christian camps in the state of Texas. I am the only one, and I'm really proud of this, who will do everything he can to make sure these Christian camps are not shut down.
I have 2 more questions and then to close out. One of them is closer to home. A lot of the interviews I've been conducting for people running for judge and other positions in the county and stuff, there's been a lot of talk about local control, MUDs, PIDs, because growth is hitting your county and you see it. You're around here. It is everywhere. And how the local community controls growth is controlled a lot by the state. What is your thoughts on that, and how will you address it if you're reelected?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on that. Nobody is more for local control than I am. I am the most local control candidate running in the race for House District 10. And because never lose sight of this, by the way, what is the most local form of control? The individual. And I am proud to represent every single one of the individuals in House District 10 who know that government at all levels is depriving them of liberty by increasing spending, getting bigger. And as government grows, liberty shrinks. So I am the most pro-local control of anybody running for this seat. And then here's the other thing. A lot of people say, well, it's the state that dictates these things. There's some truth to that. There's some not truth to it. Where I think we can bring both sides together, because developers and home builders and people who buy property, they have legitimate interests because we believe in private property rights, but also maintaining our way of life out here in what used to be, a very rural district, and that's changing now because of all the growth. I think what can bring both sides together, and it's what I've been trying to do for years and will continue trying to do, is take away power from the unelected bureaucrats that are making the decisions to allow development, as opposed to the elected officials who can be removed from office if they vote in ways that their constituents don't support. So no, I absolutely believe there is a way forward that protects the private property rights of people who want to build the type of quality communities that we want and that we need, by the way, because if we don't have, we have a housing affordability crisis. Okay, so when you outlaw all building, well, that's going to make prices continue to go up, and especially young Texans, people here in Ellis County, are going to continue to see rents and home values, quite frankly, go so high they're out of reach. But we can balance that with doing it in a wise, smart, and sustainable way here in Ellis County. And I think the way to do that is to take power away from the unelected bureaucrats at agencies like TCEQ and force those decisions into the hands of elected officials at both the state and the local level. And that's what I'm fighting. That's what I've been fighting for.
I was waiting for you to mention TCEQ, because that is outsized power. That you see with that when it comes to these MUDs and PIDs and stuff like that.
Well, and I think, and look, my voting record is public. So right now, and I don't want to spend too long on this because it gets kind of complicated. There's 2 ways that some of these districts can be created, these development districts. One is the administrative route through TCEQ. The other is through the legislative route, where people like me who are elected get to make the decision. I think we should pull the power from TCEQ, give it to elected officials at both or either the state and local level, because the elected officials are who's responsible to the people. But people can look at my voting record on this. I believe I have a 100% voting record voting against the creation of those new development districts. And I think that 100% voting record goes back to when I was elected 4 years ago.
Why should the voters of Ellis County send you back to the Texas House instead of your opponents?
Well, I'm the only real Republican running in this race. I am the only Republican who's endorsed by President Trump and other conservative leaders like Ted Cruz. And I am the only person who can be counted on to do what because it's not just words for me. I'm not interested in rhetoric. I want results. I have no state rep has worked harder or delivered more conservative results for the people of Ellis County or Texas. But here's the bigger issue, the more foundational issue. We cannot lose sight of how big the stakes are. We're in a battle for the future of Western civilization. As goes Texas, so goes America. And the people in Ellis County are on the front lines of the fight for the next generation. And people demand, the voters in Ellis County are overwhelmingly Republican, they're overwhelmingly conservative, and they both demand and they deserve to have a state representative who can be counted on to go to Austin, to go into the corrupt swamp of the Texas Capitol and not bend a knee to the liberal special interests that want to bankrupt the next generation, who will not trade the liberty of the next generation of people in Ellis County and Texas for popularity in the swamp, but will stand up to the swamp, who will commit to keeping the words, their promises on the campaign trail to never stop fighting for liberty, to never stop fighting for freedom. Texans deserve Republican leadership. They deserve bold Republican leadership. And not only am I the only real Republican in this race, I'm the most fiscally conservative member of the Texas House. Club for Growth, a conservative organization, recently put out a scorecard. I am the only member of the Texas legislature that has a 100% pro-freedom, pro-liberty, pro-free market voting record. And if either of my opponents are elected, the people of Ellis County would basically be handing this seat to radical leftist liberal Democrats, and we'd go from having the most conservative member of the Texas House, the most effective, to somebody who's going to be least effective and perhaps probably the most liberal member of the Texas House. So if you support conservative values, if you support President Trump, if you support low taxes, low regulations, secure borders, governments that are constrained in their power by the limits placed on them by the Constitution, both the federal and state, and somebody who will fight like hell to make government as irrelevant to your life as possible so that you, your kids, your grandkids can be as free as God meant for you to be, I would be humbled and I would be honored to have your vote starting on February 17th through March 3rd to continue being your voice for freedom and your fighter for liberty in the Texas legislature.
Brian, thank you so much again for being on the show. Can you hold on real quick after the show?